Africa Day has significant heritage of 57 years, started by state leaders from 32 countries determined to make the continent a better place. Now, the question we are asking as we celebrate Africa Day is, what future do we see for the continent? Joining me to chat about this is Advocate Sonwabile Mancotywa, who is the CEO of the National Heritage Council. Dr. Mancotywa, good evening and thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, and good evening also to your viewers.
Every year we celebrate Africa Day, but what COVID-19 has highlighted is that we lack a joint Africa strategy to respond to a pandemic. What role do you think days like this really do play in raising our level of awareness of that need of a joint and collaborative effort?
Thank you so much. Africa Day Talk is one of the many public discourse programs of the National Heritage Council of South Africa. Now, this is where we engage citizens of this country and other countries on critical reflections about our heritage and what humanity can learn as we craft the Africa we want. We also remember Kwame Nkrumah, one of the founders of Africa. He once said, I quote, "I'm not an African because I was born in Africa. I'm an African because Africa was born in me." Now, in line with the aspirations of Nkrumah, the AU's Vision 2063 with regards to Africa we want says, amongst other things, that Pan-Africanism will be fully entrenched, Africa's stolen culture and heritage and artifacts will be fully repatriated and safeguarded. And lastly, this Vision 2063 says Africa's women and youth shall play an important role as drivers of change. Now, this day must be given prominence it deserves. We are of the view that this day should be officially declared as the first continental public holiday to celebrate what the OAU had set to achieve when it was established 57 years ago in 1963. All African states should observe this day and make a statement to the international community by declaring it a public holiday. African civilization narratives are often neglected in finding survival solutions for the future, and these are relevant. They are relevant case studies, of course, that can be referenced. We acknowledge that not all these cases have been researched to the depth, but the mere existence of such cases should teach us something. The COVID-19 epidemic is a case for us to also reflect on how ancient forebears have dealt with such incidents. Our researchers in the heritage sector have archaeological evidence showing how ancient societies managed pandemics. Now, there are two case studies that we can look at. Is the Black Death, which happened in 1347 and 1351, and as well as the Spanish flu of 1918. Here we are today as survivors of such pandemics. Now, these are lessons we can learn from our heritage of indigenous techniques and traditional medicines.
But what advice would you give to African leadership right now as far as how they have performed and how they are continuing to perform during this pandemic, in as far as the role that they need to play in sending a direction, I suppose, to the rest of the globe that Africa has got a solution to some of these issues?
I think, first of all, we need to acknowledge the strides that have been made by our government and the leadership of President Ramaphosa. But at the same time, we in the heritage sector are of the view that sometimes our approaches become more supply-driven than demand-driven. Where is this demand that we're talking about? It is on our indigenous knowledge wisdoms. If you look at China, for instance, they still use Confucian theory that existed 418 years before Christ. It therefore means, for instance, that as Thabo Mdluli once mentioned, that Africa has got solutions not only for itself, but for the world. I think until that paradigm, is shifted and, to where we recognize ours. People are talking about Umhlonyane. I know that there's still, KwaZulu-Natal is still busy with a research as commissioned by the Department of Science and Innovation. And these are things that we are saying that in the Heritage Council, we need to explore. For instance, ALU is proven that ALU is actually proven that I think from the old days when you used to eat when you eat a dead animal, the people used to actually be provided with ALU. They say in Xhosa ikhala, which actually kills the bacteria. So I'm glad that we're beginning to harness our indigenous wisdoms, which I think is very much important. The Heritage Council at the moment is actually establishing a repository of our African, knowledge, wisdoms, our indigenous, heritage. So that on its own should actually be taught in universities, because this rich knowledge, because at the moment it's being appropriated by Europe. You can't believe that Europe is appropriating Ubuntu, which actually originated from us. Portugal at the moment has already established an institute on Ubuntu. So those are the things that we are saying that as the National Heritage Council of South Africa, it should actually be our contribution, that our people have, these techniques, which are rich in our indigenous wisdoms.
Now, going forward and moving ahead, you look at South Africa in particular and us embracing this identity of being African. You would hear South Africans, for example, talking about, I traveled to Africa, as if they don't realize that they are already in Africa, in South Africa. How do you promote that in society in a more visible way than, the odd concert that we hold or the odd dialogue that we hold around Africa Day?
I think there's still a lot to go. The fact that our government at the moment is spearheading the AU anthem, it's a sign in the right direction. But at the same time, people still really need to be educated. Heritage can play a very important part in that, because heritage is a DNA of our society. People need to visit our museums. We need to, of course, we're now making information available digitally, where people must not only know Africa, but must believe in Africa, as Kwame Nkrumah said. Africa must be born in you. And so these are the things. I mean, our heritage is more than 4.2 billion years old. And that on its own, I mean, there are certain colonial concepts that we must kill. For instance, pre-colonial history. There's nothing called like pre-colonial history. There was freedom in Africa before the arrival of settlers in this community, settling communities in this country. So I think that Africa, that's why we of the view that this day is so important. If there's one day which is important, is Africa Day, and the Heritage Council has arranged, as just immediately after after my discussion, we'll have Professor Buleng Lengapula, who is the Vice Director at the University of Free State, who will help us tease again on a very important subject, which is Africa in the eyes of the global pandemic, now and in future. Yeah. We are saying that heritage, is a strategic resource to humankind. So we should then be occupied with, this, with heritage and national identity. As one scholar, Anta Diop once said, that we must strive for transdisciplinarism, which therefore means now that across, whether you're a pilot, you are an astronomist, and so forth, you must understand the ABCs of heritage.